Hey everybody, we're the Menschwarmers. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my co-host Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I got a joke to open the show tonight.
Oh wow! Why is this night different from all other nights?
That's a good joke. We'll start. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Yitzhak.
Yitzhak. Yitzhak who?
It's hockey season.
Yeah, you got me. Got me that one. I think I know some 4-year-olds who might enjoy that one.
Yeah, exactly.
It is hockey season. I mean, there's a tinge of fall in the air. It rained on me as I was leaving the. I went to the baseball game, the Jays game last night. They got beaten, and it was raining on us on the way back from the game. Really, that's heard some out of towners, heard some Australians opine, why doesn't this tunnel go all the way to the stadium? Which, it's true.
It's a great question.
It is funny that we have an indoor stadium like built for rain and a tunnel that takes you from the train station to like 500 meters away from the stadium.
Yes, it's not. It doesn't go directly the way.
Because the other main stadium in Toronto, the Scotiabank Arena, like it is connected to our main train station.
You know what I bet?
You don't have to go outside to go to it.
It's got to be some sort of crowd control thing. Like there's that huge plaza it empties out into, and it would just take they don't want people trapped in the tunnel, is my guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a fair point. Anyways, it is definitely fall. It is hockey season quicker than we thought. It's also the end of the baseball season. I think we should spend this episode talking a little bit of hockey, a little bit of baseball, previewing some playoffs and previewing the NHL season to come.
Absolutely. By the time this episode airs, hockey season will have not started, but by the time our next episode airs, hockey season will be in full swing.
Yeah, I mean, it's preseason, it's training camp, it's they've moved things forward and back in both directions for hockey. It feels like the offseason is very short now, given how long the playoffs take, often two days of rest between games. And the first games are coming up in about a week.
So it's true. We're a week away. There's a couple of major Jewish stories coming in hockey this season. Primarily, that of the emerging superstardom of the Boychicks, the Hughes brothers.
Sure.
All three brothers are on the cover of the video game this year, which is the first time in a long time they've had multiple brothers. I think Sedin twins earlier, but definitely the first time they've had Jewish brothers. And I think the first time there's been, as far as we can remember, a Jewish pro athlete on a video game.
Yeah, I can't really think of any other. I mean, maybe Amari was on a NBA basketball a game of some sort before he'd converted. That's the only one I can think of who might have
maybe
possibly been one in the video game era. And I don't think of there being any do you remember there was an era in like the NES Super Nintendo era where like every baseball player had their own video game? Like there was a Roger Clemens one, there's a Ken Griffey one,
Ken Griffey one. Yeah, absolutely.
Cal Ripken game. I don't know if there's Sandy Koufax baseball or Sean Green baseball. I guess so. Not.
And I can't think of any particular hockey game that might have had Mike Camilleri on the cover.
Yeah, probably not. But it is exciting for the our Jewish Sutter brothers, or equivalent. Hockey's had some great brothers. And even beyond that, there's been brothers and sisters who have both played at the highest levels.
I mean, the Kessels being a great example,
right?
Some Toronto love there. Phil and Amanda Kessel, both multiple time champions. Amanda Kessel now, I believe, coaching in the PWHL.
Mm-hmm. So the Hughes brothers, what's on tap for them this coming season?
We have, last year Quinn really took the step of the next level. He was signed a big new deal, was named captain of the Canucks, and responded by being the best defenseman in the league, bar none, by a long way.
Okay.
He had been a really positive plus-minus player for a long time. He drove the play very well, but his offensive game took another level. Came to another level, and he won the Norris Trophy, which recognizes the best defensive player in the league. 2 years ago, it was also won by Adam Fox, another Jewish player, as we've talked about many times. It spent a year in the Goyish wilderness and is now back in the hands of the chosen people with Quinn Hughes. So he, it's not out of the question he wins it again. It's unlikely, but I think the expectation is that he will put up a fight and still, once again, be one of the best defensive players in the league. Whereas Jack, he was on fire to start last season, and then he sort of calm down a little bit, but he has MVP candidate written all over him. If he can take the next level, he's a year younger than his brother, maybe 2 years younger than his brother, and he would sort of be a similar age that steps up to the next level. He was drafted 1 year later, which would put him, his breakout year could be this year. And, as he is about a point a game player, if he was to break out further than that now, that would be, to MVP candidate.
Right. I mean, they're both sort of young enough that they have some room to grow. And,
absolutely.
They'll be out there together sometimes, defenseman and a center. So I think we might see some Hughes goals.
That would be, so Quinn plays for Vancouver. Luke is the other player on New Jersey.
Sorry, isn't Luke a defenseman?
No, yes, but, you were talking about both of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mistake. You're looking at both Quinn and Luke and Jack. Yes, Luke and Jack both play. We'll see lots of Hughes goals.
Right.
There's been a number of them. And we expect to see sort of like, a really good brotherly tandem. One place all three of them will play together, which is extremely cool, is on Team USA, which is coming to be in the spring, sort of in lieu of an all-star game this year. They're doing what I think they're calling a Four Nations face-off, which is USA, Canada, Sweden, and Finland. Where all three Hughes brothers are expected to play for Team USA. In fact, there's going to be a lot of Jewish players on Team USA. It is likely that Adam Fox will also make that team.
Wow.
And very likely that their goalie will wind up being Jeremy Swayman, who, after finding out was Jewish last year, backstopped the Bruins to sort of stealing a series over our beloved Maple Leafs.
That would be, honestly, if they can find a way to get 4 or 5 of the Jewish players on the ice at the same time for Team USA, I think that'll be a heavily noticed thing and an extremely
not
cool
out of the
thing.
Question.
Yeah.
It is entirely possible you get sort of Luke Hughes as a left wing, Jack as a center, and Quinn and Adam Fox. Quinn and Adam Fox playing there with
Swayman
they'd move Luke up, or they'd have the Hughes brothers playing together, and then Jack in the center and Adam Fox maybe on a power play extra there. And we'd also see Jeremy Swayman as a goalie. Interesting about Swayman right now is he currently does not have a contract.
Really?
Jeremy Swayman is what's called a restricted free agent.
Okay.
Which means he currently doesn't have a contract, but his team, the Boston Bruins, have an exclusive negotiating window with him.
Okay. So in all likelihood, he'll sign some sort of deal with Boston or come to some terms with them.
Yes. What, is common for players that are as good as him, and especially that are coming off their breakout year, is they will sign sort of a 1 or 2 year deal. Which extends them to another restricted free agency period. Right now, I think you have to play 8 years in the NHL or turn 27 to become an unrestricted free agent. Or maybe it's 7 years now. But until then, you sort of sign restricted contracts until you can get to unrestricted. He is asking for an 8-year deal. It seems that the Bruins aren't willing to go there yet. However, it's likely he might sign a bridge contract because he has until December 1st. If he doesn't sign until December 1st, he has to sit out the entire season. Wow. So, he was named, they traded away the other goalie. They sort of had a 1 and 1A thing. He was named the starter in Boston. They are investing a good portion of their future in him as a goalie. He's one of the best goalies in the league. He is very much likely to be, one of the best goalies in the league as they see. It is unlikely that he will become the highest paid goalie in the league.
Sure.
Carey Price has the record for that. And, Igor Shesterkin, who's also a free agent for New York, is probably going to sign a record deal. Swayman said he's not really interested in taking a team-friendly deal. This is his chance to make the most money of his career, so he's got to go for it. That said, he is going to get a lot of money. And, I could see, not being a contract expert, I could see either a bridge deal for about $8 million a year, or maybe they'll go the full 8x8, which is a very common deal for sort of like budding superstars in the NHL right now.
I see. Lock them down at a reasonable price.
Exactly.
Moving north of the border, we should give a hearty muzzle tov to former Menschwarmers guest Zach Hyman, who just announced the birth of his third son. Congratulations.
3 boys.
Very exciting for him. We missed the first couple of days of training camp, but given how much they played last year, I don't know that. I think he needs as much time off as possible, especially with a newborn who just arrived.
Absolutely. He comes, I think he's one of 5 boys.
Oh, wow.
Zach is, and to have, we met him, or we had him on the show, right? My 3.5-year-old son and his oldest son are roughly the same age.
Uh-huh. Well, he's outpacing you, not just on the ice.
He is outpacing me big time.
So just to remind everyone what Zach Hyman did last year, he scored 54 goals. He was the breakout for the Oilers last year. A lot of ice time with
point a game player for
McDavid.
The second year in a row.
Yeah.
Scored 16 goals in 25 games in the playoffs, which led the
playoffs. Yeah. Had the most goals in the playoffs. Edmonton came, as close as you can come. They lost in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. And
yes.
I think they're, maybe not favorites to return to the finals this year, but certainly have a decent shot. We saw Florida do it last year after having made the finals. So,
and losing, they absolutely have a decent shot. Edmonton sort of from January 1st on, I think it was even December 1st on last year, they were the best team in the league by a mile. After a really slow start, they really caught up and played spectacularly. And I think we can kind of expect that again from them. They're really running it back. They're making no major changes.
Right.
They still have McDavid. They still have Hyman, who became a superstar in Edmonton. He is beloved. And we love to see it. We love to see a Jewish boy from Toronto and a friend of the podcast succeeding so much.
Yep.
And
I think getting to 50 goals again will be a challenge. It's certainly possible. I think an all-star selection is certainly in the running this year after, as a sort of emeritus type for last year.
From last year.
He was snubbed last year.
If you combine his regular season and playoff goals, just for, there's obviously a game factor in this, but Austin Matthews was the only player who scored more than him last year.
Wow. Amazing.
Matthews only played one playoff round, but Hyman had such an excellent playoffs that he really, he did phenomenal. We're not, like I said, there's fewer, or like Jamie said, there's fewer than 100 players ever who have scored 50 goals in a season. I think the number who have scored multiple 50-goal seasons is 10 or 12 who have scored multiple 50-goal seasons. So it'd be pretty cool to see him with another one.
Okay.
But it is unlikely, but it would be extremely cool if it happens.
Right. Gabe, one more player I wanted to talk about in our preseason preview is another former Menschwarmers guest. You interviewed him last year, Andrew Crystal, who was picked 40th overall in the 2023 NHL draft by the Washington Capitals. He was the highest drafted Jewish player that year. He is young. He is 19 years old right now.
Yep.
He'll turn 20 in February. He may crack the roster for the Washington Capitals.
Absolutely.
I think that would be pretty exciting for him, for such a young player. Like, it's rare to get a shot that young, usually given, hockey's minor league system, college,
and he'd be going straight from junior to the big team.
Exactly. He had a goal against the Bruins in a preseason game. I think it's sort of like, if you play well enough, you'll force their hand.
Yep.
Washington is not necessarily expected to be a contender this year. Sort of, winding down the Ovechkin years.
It feels like, and with all greatest apologies to Andrew for this, as you said, that this year is sort of there are two goals for the Capitals this year. One of them is get Ovechkin the all-time goals record,
right? Which is going to be he needs a few, yeah. Yes,
but it is possible it happens this year, absolutely possible. And two is sort of get on to the next generation, of which Andrew Crystal is actually a really major part.
Absolutely. I think it would be very useful for his development to play with Ovechkin, a man who is literally twice his age, and like honestly, to be on a line with him or get some experience with him, I think there's a lot to benefit from that.
Absolutely. Andrew Crystal has scored in 2 straight games, actually, including a goal at the end of the game last night. That said, he is being singled out for needing development from the coach, which is actually usually a good sign, because it means the expectations are high and they're trying to light a fire under him. So it would be extremely cool to see him make the team. Like you said, at age 19 and sort of skipping the AHL entirely, going straight from junior, where he played in Kelowna, up to the NHL.
And we'll see. I mean, if he doesn't make the opening day roster, I think there's a decent chance that he comes in at some point this year. and makes it up. So, it's something to keep an ear out for. A young phenom is exciting. And also, I mean, hockey does have the ability you do have guys who get seasoned on the ice, who come in at 19, 20, play, halftime.
Jack Hughes is an excellent example of that. Took him a couple of years to find his footing. And now he's, as we said, possibly an MVP candidate this year.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Something important to sort of note about Crystal is that he does come in. He was the 5th leading scorer in the WHL last year, which is, probably one of the best leagues in the world that isn't the NHL.
Right.
He was a spectacular player and looks to be ready at least for a full-time pro job, if not in the NHL. The AHL might happen, but he's ready for that at the very least.
Right. Well, that's pretty exciting. I think we'll leave it there for now with our NHL preview. I mean, we covered a lot of the great guys. Obviously, there's a few other players we haven't talked about. Jacob Chicharon, has been a pretty big factor. Might be a line mate, I guess, with Crystal potentially now that he's on the Capitals as well, or might play with him a little bit. Had a pretty decent year last year for the Senators. I think we'll get a fair amount of playing time with the Capitals this year.
Would be very cool to see a couple of them.
Must suck to get traded from Ottawa to Washington, just like spending all your time in federal capitals.
That's true. You go from the Capitals of one to the Capitals of the other. One other player that's worth mentioning, I think we want to talk about, who was a high draft pick of this past year, drafted 7th overall, was Zev Buam.
Right.
Quick reminder of Zev Buam. He was drafted, as I said, 12th overall, I should say, by Minnesota. Lots of Jewish people in Minneapolis. He, not only that, he played, he lived there for a while, lived in that area in the Midwest, played for the U.S. National Development Team, which is in Western Michigan. So not too far. And then he went to the University of Denver, and is now, been drafted. It is likely he will play another year in university.
Right.
I think he mentioned that he wanted to, but some people say some of his skills might be NHL ready. They call him an elite puck mover, which is a very important thing for a defenseman to be, especially an offensive defenseman like him. I don't know if he is in rookie training camp right now. But if not, we're likely to see him at potentially the World Championships at the end of the year, or because he's been drafted, join the team at the end of the NHL season. He can wait until he plays one more year of college. That ends in March, and then he could join for the end of the season in the playoffs. But it all depends how Minnesota did. They were a bubble team last year. They sort of expect to be again. Right. But he's certainly a huge part of their future.
Yeah, and his older brother Shai Buyam was a Red Wings draft pick back in 2021. Also only 21 years old. Drafted. He must have been 17 or 18 years old. So still a little more seasoning. Maybe we'll make it to the NHL this year. Maybe not for another year or two. I think just given his development, but he's scoring goals in the AHL. He'll be playing in the AHL this year, I think, and having a good
One
shot
thing
there.
I noticed about them discussing Zev Buam, which is something I think we should talk about, is he's widely seen. A lot of his scouting reports say, and I find they say this about a lot of Jewish players, he's got smarts. He's a smart player.
Love that.
He worked in school. He's an intelligent, thoughtful.
Hey, that's been dogged Jewish athletes from back in the days of Mo Berg and Sandy Koufax. So it's no shame to be thought of as the smart guy.
I would agree. Except I remember Josh Rosen was once seen as being too smart to play in the NFL.
Well, that might have been one of
that might have been true. That might have been true. Before we get into our baseball conversation, I want to quickly mention. Right before we leave hockey, a quick reminder about early draft pick Cole Yzerman of the New York Islanders. That is not the same as Steve Yzerman, who many people thought was Jewish and was not. Right. But this is Cole Yzerman, spelled in a much more Jewish way, Eiserman. And that's Yzerman, like that real sort of Jewish pronunciation on it. His name was Cole Yzer, also likely to be Jewish, but he is not. He is merely, or I should say very much, not merely, a Mike Jacobs All-Star.
Mike Jacobs All-Star!
Yeah, good to know. I hope the music just played. That's our big drop for the game. Anyways, that's a pretty good wrap on our NHL preview. Why don't we take a quick break and we'll come back and talk some MLB playoffs. We've got a lot of Jewish players coming up in the MLB postseason.
This is an audition to be a cantor.
But I don't want to be a cantor.
I wasn't raised with any religion. You're Jewish, though.
The heartbeat of community.
I welcomed Sam into my community by first taking his foreskin and next showing him the beautiful Twister bagel.
Culturally Jewish is the only podcast covering the weird, wide world of independent Canadian Jewish art.
Listen to Culturally Jewish at the cjn.ca/culture or wherever you get your podcasts.
Anyways, moving on, Gabe. It is, starting to be fall. We got the Fall Classic coming up. MLB postseason is shaping up.
Sorry. I thought you were talking about Oktoberfest, the Fall Classic.
I've never really been to an Oktoberfest celebration. Have you? When we were in university, they used to do
I as a rule try and avoid German celebrations. They don't suit well, intellectually with me.
Yeah, it's like Larry said about Jeff's dog, Oscar. It's just nice to be affectionate to something German.
You don't get the opportunity very often.
So as we sit now, the playoffs are not set in baseball, but there are some Jews who are already in and Jews who are likely to be in. In the AL East, the Baltimore Orioles have pretty much locked up a wild card spot. I think they actually have. Like, they've clinched a wild card spot. It seems likely that Dean Kramer will be on the playoff roster. Not entirely clear. He hasn't had the best year. He's had some injury issues. But they've recently had an injury to one of their other pitchers, and it seems likely that he'll at least get a shot if they make it through the wild card series.
Absolutely. He pitched last year in the playoffs too.
Yep.
It is likely, he will again. Last year he went into the season sort of as their presumptive ace. Didn't fully work out that way, but he is still certainly a very important pitcher. They right now have three starters, I should say, who started the season on the team who are now on the 60-day DL.
Right.
So Kramer is sort of left as their third starter, I think he is right now, which would give him a start in the opening round. Another actually,
if they win a game, I mean, if they lose a game, if they make it to 3 games. But either way, it's likely that we'll see Dean Kramer pitch at some point in the postseason.
One Oriole we're unlikely to see by that same token is Cade Povich, who also sounds Jewish, but isn't Mike Jacobs All-Star.
Mike Jacobs All-Star. Cade Povich. Moving out to the West, we of course gave him the Menschwarmers bump. Alex Bregman, he came on the podcast before the season started. Very, very nice of him to join us. And
very nice guy, excellent hitter, spectacular salsa chef.
He's been a big part of the Astros sort of bounce back. They had a really, really rough start to the year, but they've basically been the best team in baseball over the last 100 games, and they've won the West. They've clinched the West now. They took care of business there.
5th straight year.
Yeah. We talked about this before the season when we had Alex on, that just like the fact that they've made so many ALCSs in a row is sort of like unremarked upon. Like, they've got 2 World Series in that time span, one of which is a little tainted, but the more recent one is less so. And I think they're as good a bet as any to make it. So much of being of playoff success is just like repeat performance, guys who know how to do it, like not being intimidated by it. And, Alex has had a really solid year, not quite at the, MVP runner-up level that he was before.
Yeah, it was not his best year, although,
but solid. I mean, he's hit 26 home runs. Yep. He's hit 28 doubles. Like, he's hitting for power. He's getting the ball in play. He had a spectacular July and August, both of which, really took the team to the next level. Right.
His other months, okay, but June, July, and August, he was, one of the best players in the league, and that really helped the team significantly.
Yeah. And this is a guy who, has the ability to really turn it on in the playoffs. He hit 3 home runs in the ALCS last year. He can be a huge contributor. If Houston makes it far, if they make it to the championship series, they make it to the World Series, he's going to be a big part of that team.
Big question. We're not sure if he's going to be an Astro next year.
Yeah, that's true. it's his free agent year, and it could be a big payday for him, especially if there's a playoffs that is memorable. We should give a shout out to non-Jewish, obviously, Shohei Ohtani. I shouldn't say obviously, you never know. Shohei Ohtani of the LA Dodgers, not Jewish. He had a remarkable 6-for-6 game where he hit 3 home runs and he became the first 50-50 player. And people were quick to mention that the only time a Dodger had previously done that was Sean Green, who went 6-for-6 with 4 home runs for the Dodgers.
Wow.
Once. Pretty amazing game. Always good to get some Sean Green shine.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see a Sean Green mention on the podcast.
Maybe we'll get a Sean Green first pitch at some point for the Dodgers in the playoffs.
During the playoffs, hopefully one day we get a Sean Green Menschwarmers appearance.
That would be great.
Jeff Perlman, if you're still listening to this, we'll take that intro.
So the Jews in the NL is a bit more up in the air. As I'm saying this, the Mets and the Diamondbacks are currently in the playoffs, and the
is that Jews
Braves
in the Netherlands or Jews in the National League in baseball?
The National League in baseball.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Jews in the Netherlands have their own issues. So we can say that. Well, let's start here. The Philadelphia Phillies have clinched the East. They're the best team in baseball. Their backup catcher is Garrett Stubbs, who has played for Team Israel. He doesn't get to play that much, given that they have JT Realmuto, who's one of the best catchers in the league. But he is their backup catcher. He's been playing, every 4 or 5 days. I assume he'll get some chances in the playoffs. Certainly, you need to carry a backup catcher. He has a few. He got some a little bit of playing time last year. He's also used often
as a pinch hitter and a pinch runner, which happens a lot in the National League, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, so we'll see. I think he'll certainly be on the roster again, whether he gets playing time or not. Not clear. New York Mets have Harrison Bader, formerly of the New York Yankees. Harrison's had a pretty solid year, hitting for a little bit of power, 12 home runs, 17 stolen bases, played some pretty decent defense. He's been healthy this year, which is good because it's really since 2021 that he's been dealing with ongoing nagging injuries. I'm sure there's still some, there's always some things affecting you, whatever. But he has been pretty reliably in center field for the Mets. If they make the playoffs, he'll be there. He'll be there.
He'll be there for sure. Hopefully wearing his Magen David belt.
Yeah.
Which he showed, earlier in the season, was proud to wear.
Now, I think that Arizona's probably going to make it. They have been losing a lot of games recently, but I hope that they can make it. They've got the Padres to end the season, so the Padres are sort of already clinched. There's not like the Padres sort of have a chance to rest. They have the first wild card pretty much sewed up. Like maybe they could win the division, but it's unlikely.
So speaking of Jewish Padres, where does Dylan Cease fit in the playoff roster?
Oh, that's a good point. I actually hadn't thought about Dylan Cease, who I think is not identifying as Jewish necessarily, but talked about playing for Team Israel and
he has Jewish grandparents. One set of his grandparents were Jewish.
Yeah, I think maybe his parent who was born Jewish wasn't necessarily there. Anyways, but I think Dylan Cease might be on the playoff roster. He had been in the playoffs with the White Sox back when the White Sox fielded the baseball team instead of whatever they tried.
And he threw a no-hitter this year. He is currently listed as their ace, which is not, it's a little bit like that's just where he is on their depth chart. But
sure,
they have Yu Darvish, they have Joe Musgrove, they have Michael King. Like they are loaded.
But Dylan Cease has had a very solid year. I think he's going to be on the roster for sure. So that's a good point. He is a Jew who is, I think the Padres have clinched. They clinched yesterday with a triple.
Yeah, with a triple play.
So a lot, honestly, like it's more likely than not that a Jewish player makes the World Series, unless the Dodgers or Brewers win the pennant.
But presumably Ryan Braun would be involved if the Brewers won the pennant.
Maybe
somehow.
Yeah. Moving on to Arizona, as I said, I think they're going to make the playoffs. If they do, it'll be in no small part because of the efforts of Jock Peterson
having a spectacular season.
And he is playoff god. He is a bad bitch wearing his pearls. He has already won 2 World Series. he is going to be a huge part of it. He's been like, I don't even know if he's played a game in the field. Like he is their DH like every day in, day out.
They're full on DH, but
his bat has been honestly as good as it's been in years. He's hit 23 home runs. He's playing a fair amount. He's been hit. He is leading the league in hits by pitch.
That's amazing
in beanballs, which is I respect that so much. Like if you're a veteran player, like you are making that happen. Like there's no he's got I think he's somewhere around 10th or 12th in the National League in OPS. Okay.
He's been one of the best hitters in the entire league. Honestly, this season, it's very, very impressive.
Yeah. You don't get the positional flexibility of someone who can't really play in the field that much, but still that means in the playoffs, you're starting, you're going to get your at bats. Maybe you're moved out for a defensive replacement or something like that, but like you're going to play a fair amount.
If he's needed in the field, he could play. He's played first base. He's played both corner outfield positions. If he is needed, he could go. I will say there are no other Jews I can find on Arizona. However, there is a guy named Gabriel Moreno.
Sure.
Having Gabe solidarity, got to mention him. And not Jewish, but a Christian Walker.
Okay. And the other team that is competing half a game back right now for the last wild card spot is the Atlanta Braves, who are, of course, buoyed by Max Fried. Max has had...
Buoyed. Good use of buoyed.
Max has had, a bounce back year after a 2023 that really was limited due to injuries. He's pitched 165 innings this year, which is, pretty much as many innings as they let you throw these days. A 3.4 ERA. Unfortunately, only 10-10 in the wins and loss, as much as that matters. But he was an all-star. He's if not their ace, he's right there. Will certainly be pitching in their wild card series if they make it. And has just been out there logging innings. It's very close right now. Like, honestly, I think we'll see two of those three teams, the Mets, the Braves, and the Diamondbacks. Weirdly, no one is playing each other in their final series. Except for the Mets and the Braves. So the Braves, like that, it's almost, that's why I'm saying Arizona is almost certainly going to make it, because if they can take care of business, like either the Mets or the Braves will win 2 or 3, and the other one will fade away just by virtue of that.
They've already clinched, but the Padres are playing the Diamondbacks this weekend.
Yeah, they are. As I said, they've clinched. So that is a good divisional series. We'll see what happens with that. It's possible the Padres have to try to win the division. Like, there's definitely a benefit to winning the division. They're only 2 games back of the Dodgers right now.
So they're playing the Dodgers this week.
Yeah. So that is a lot of Jews. I mean, we had a good run of Jews in the World Series for a while. And then I guess we lost it last year. I don't think there was anyone. But there's a pretty good shot of a Jew in the World Series.
Pretty much. I think it's so, as you said, it's every single team except for in the National League, it'd be the Dodgers.
Yeah. And the Brewers.
And the Brewers, right. Although Bronny would probably somehow be involved. And the American League, I think we didn't go through sort of the American League wildcard scenarios, but I think we could see between Baltimore and Houston, we're likely to see somebody.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Also, not forget, he hasn't been playing, but Scott Efros is still technically a Yankee.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's likely that he's going to make a playoff roster.
No.
If they do,
but he would get a ring for being on the 40-man.
Sure, that's something. But yeah, there's a lot of rooting interest. I mean, we can go. Don't think there's any of the managers this year. It's really just Bob Melvin on the Giants, I think, is the only current Jewish manager. So we won't go too deep into front offices or anything like that, or ownership. But there's a lot of Jewish rooting interest. I mean, I think I will say that as a Jays fan, I'm sort of more excited for the playoffs this year. Not that I had been for the Jays, but like, I know that I'm going to watch baseball playoffs this year because the wound of a bad Jays team is less fresh. Do you know? Like, we've accepted for the last few months that our team's probably not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, you get to enjoy it just for the sake of enjoying good baseball.
Exactly. And I love baseball. I love watching fall baseball. So there's a lot of rooting interest for Jewish fans in this MLB postseason.
Absolutely. We sort of glossed over one, which I think is sort of one thing I want to mention, going back to the American League, is that we are quite likely to see, I guess, Jew by blood, but not by practice, Eli Morgan, pitching for the Guardians during the playoffs this year.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that he had Jewish heritage.
Yeah. His father is Jewish, but he does not practice.
He doesn't identify. Okay.
Yeah, and we are likely to see him. The Guardians also have Daniel Schneemann, which sounds like a made-up name if you were to pretend someone was Jewish. It's like, oh, it's my uncle, Daniel Schneemann. But he is not Jewish.
No.
I'm not going to say it. I know what you're all thinking. I'm not going to say it, but he's not Jewish.
No, he's not. Well, that's exciting as well. I mean, it's good to have a rooting interest, even if he's not identifying. Could qualify for Team Israel in the future.
Absolutely. He would. He absolutely would.
Yeah. Gabe, before we go, I just wanted to mention a shout out to someone we've talked about before, who is BYU Cougars quarterback Jake Retzlaff. BYU just beat Kansas State last week. Kansas State was ranked, I think they were ranked 13th or something like that at the time of their meeting. And they dominated. They won 38-9. Retzlaff was sort of game manager type role. They ran the ball a lot, but he threw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He has been pretty solid this year. He is 9-3 touchdown interceptions. He had a big game against, their opponents haven't been that great up until now. Now's the stretch of their BYU's in the Big 12 now. Now's the stretch coming up where they have all their Big 12 opponents. They're playing Baylor this week, and Baylor's 2-2, but Baylor I think is favored by a few points. But this could go for BYU. They have a solid team. They often have the benefit of a lot of guys who have done mission trips who are 24 or 25 because they went to go dig wells in Guatemala for a few years.
And so they're jacked. They're ready. They can go.
They're just men. They're like men playing with children. And it's just yes, I'm a 26-year-old man, somehow have eligibility to play football right now. That's their benefit.
They're 3-0 right now. And I'll quote I believe it was the chief rabbi of Utah, Salt Lake City, whatever, who said, the thing that's been plaguing the BYU Cougars for so many years is not enough Jewish quarterbacks.
I like that line. I think that's great. It is, anachronistic for a Jewish player to be, captaining, quarterbacking the most Mormon school in the world. I mean, not that they have so much competition.
No, yeah, I don't think there's many others. But to have a specifically religious university where the religion is not Judaism.
Right. Named after the founder of the Mormon Church or the Latter-day Saints Church, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, it's just pretty amazing, pretty incongruous, but it's happening. And, this is honestly this is a good shot for them. They're playing Baylor, and then they have a bye week before Arizona and Oklahoma State. They play Utah, who's also ranked. But it's sort of a softer schedule as far as the Big 12 goes. They're not playing some of the more difficult teams. I'm pretty sure. I believe there's a Big 12 championship game this year. So if they can make it all the way, if they're one of the top 2 teams, they'll have a shot to make the playoffs. I'm just saying, there's 12-team playoff this year. Honestly, a 1-loss BYU team might make it.
Might make Utah, it. You never know.
They won the Big 12 championship game. That could happen. It would be pretty cool. We haven't had a Jewish quarterback in college football achieve at this level since Josh Rosen, who wasn't.
One thing that's also very interesting. The guy that Jake Retzlaff replaced, also of Jewish heritage, Keaton Slovis, has been unable to really stick with an NFL team, but he is currently on the practice squad of the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
So he's hanging around.
There's a world which in 2025, 2026, we have multiple Jewish BYU alumni quarterbacks in the NFL.
That would be spectacular.
That would be something. So I urge you to keep an eye on them. Unfortunately, BYU plays at a very late. Usually, like their games are often at like 10:30 because they play in the West Coast or Mountain West. But often they have 9:30, 10:30 games. But if you are interested in picking up a college football team for the year, I encourage you to take BYU.
Yeah, go Mormon. Do you think not being Mormon? Do you think not being Mormon that Retzlaff has to follow the BYU like honor code?
I think you do. I mean, I think that's universal. Like, so for people not in the know, like I think it's the main ones that they talk about are you're not allowed to have any sort of premarital relations, and you're not allowed to, I think, drink or do drugs.
Yeah, there's no alcohol.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the thing, quite hilariously, the honor code itself lists no amphetamines, no barbiturates, no hallucinogenic drugs, no psychedelic drugs, and no narcotics.
Which you shouldn't be doing anyways. Let's be clear. But if you're if you're a college football player, you should not.
Also, no long hair on men, which is very interesting. So there's lots of them. A lot of things follow a chaste and virtuous life. But like, could he really not have coffee?
No, I don't think they ban that. I mean, I'm sure they don't like serve it in the dining hall necessarily, but I think that they're. I don't know how the degree to which they're enforcing that. I feel like it's
no profanity. So is he allowed to watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I mean, he's not using.
He can watch it, but he can't quote it.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I think athletes have typically gotten probably some relief from some of those things. There was a story a couple years back when a basketball player was kicked off the team prior to March Madness because I believe having premarital sex.
It might have been premarital sex with himself, if I remember this correctly.
And they were one of the top teams in the country. Like they had a very good basketball team that year.
Or as they call it at BYU, self-husbandry.
I don't know if we can get Jake on the podcast maybe after the season. We can talk to him about the degree to which the church honor code is enforced at BYU. But it's interesting to keep in mind. Why don't we leave it there for now? A lot of exciting stuff going on in sports. Hockey season starting, MLB playoffs. And keep an eye on Jake Retzlaff and BYU. As always, we're brought to you by the Canadian Jewish News. Our producer is Michael Fraiman. Find our podcast on the Canadian Jewish News website, thecjn.ca, and follow us on Twitter at Menschwarmers. Still tweeting out the good words about Jewish athletes, Jewish sports, and everything related to it. Thanks for listening. See you next time.